Hello, everyone. Welcome to D&D News. We're going to sing the news today the entire time. This is what's going to happen. Lots of non-stop singing because it's musical time all the time. I'm taking off my shirt because it got hot. As soon as I took one sip of coffee, I immediately got hot. So it happens. Temperature rising. I feel my temperature. Oh, God. I can't stop. Someone told me today, it was Bill Benham on the D&D team, said that I'm extra singy today, and I don't know why. I'm not really sure, but it happened. I'm Greg Tito, in case you didn't know. I'm here to talk about all the things that are happening with Dungeons & Dragons. Well, most of the things, anyway. One thing to note, we are on a hiatus for Dice Camera Action. For those of you tuning in to Dungeons & Dragons for DCA, we don't have any news on that front. We are still formulating plans. There were some folks out of the office the last week who may be involved in creating that story. So they were giving it a good think on stories and things that will continue. But we'll be giving you some news some time in the future about that. And yes, this is my yellow Dungeons & Dragons t-shirt. What do you guys think? I think I've said this. It actually matches pretty well with the background behind me, as well as the lower thirds there. It's not quite hell-like, but it's close. Hell is a yellow shirt. What was I talking about? Someone's got some soul. This is what you do with souls. You toss them up in the air and you flip them, and you're like, wait, no, that's Two-Face. That's what he does. That's not what I do. Oh, right. So we made a whole bunch of these t-shirts and with different color combinations. So this is the yellow and blue logo combo. And I think we made 10 of them. We ended up making 5 of the color combos as swag. This was one of the samples, though, and I snagged it along with some of the other t-shirts that I really like to wear. One is white with red. There's also a purple one with white lettering that I really like. I liked all the color combinations, honestly. Yesterday, I wore one that actually probably should fit a lot more with the Descent into Avernus color scheme. It's a dark maroon, like really dark maroon with black logo, so you can almost barely tell the logo. You'd be able to tell it in this kind of lighting, but not in anything else. It's pretty great. How are you guys doing? I see lots of everyone talking about the yellow, people talking about the purples. Yes, exactly, Ashley. The purple is where it's at. How's it going, El Awarius? Good to see you, Wild Rose Mage. You guys are doing some good stuff, and I'm glad you're here for hanging out. What was I gonna say? So there's so many things going on with Dungeons & Dragons. We are still, in some ways, recovering from D&D Live 2019, The Descent. I've said it a couple times, but it feels like a calendar year reset, at least for me and the folks on the Dungeons & Dragons team that are marketing stuff, because we put so much energy and time and focus on the D&D Live events, like the Stream Many Eyes last year and the ones before, that it really does feel like, okay, now it's time to start planning for next year and get into a rebuilding phase for everything that's going on for the 2019-2020 D&D season. There's a lot of exciting stuff. Some things will be revealed sooner rather than later. Some things will be revealed later rather than sooner. I guess that's all things. I just did a subset of everything. So if you guys are following the Venn diagram, that's like basically 2 concentric circles. It's happening. Things are going on. So one of the folks, things I do want to talk about, of course, is Ghost of Saltmarsh. It is out now. You can find it in your local game store or anywhere else in the world. What do you guys think? Have you guys been able to play around or read the most recent Ghost of Saltmarsh, or most recent D&D release that is Ghost of Saltmarsh? Have you been able to play any nautical themed or verging into nautical themed adventures? Would love to hear all about it. There is tons of fun stuff in there that you could pull out. Even if you're not running an entire campaign on the high seas, you can certainly use a few adventures and or encounters from this book in your own. There's also lots of rules about how to run a vehicle, such as a ship, for example, or an airship. If you were to go that way, you could also use them for that purpose. It is out in 2 covers. You can get one in a standard art cover that's by Grzegorz Rutkowski. I like this. It is. Actually, I should be using my images here. Bum, 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 ba-dum. There we go. There it is. There's the cover. It looks great. And then there is the alternate cover by N.C. Winters with the Sahuagin on the right there. You guys know what I'm going to talk about here? I'm going to talk about the fact that, and I didn't know this until very recently, the image of the special alternate cover on the right, you could say, is very similar to the point of view of the elven archer, or the archer that's in the back of the boat in the foreground of the standard cover. That Sahuagin is coming out of the water. It's got its claw up, and it's got its sharp, pointy claws coming at you. It's very similarly to the one that is approaching the elven archer there, which I think is so cool. I love those type of things. Now, once you go a little bit too far down that road, it does kind of break, because there is a moon, or at least a moon-like light on both of them that would be in the wrong perspective. But you could say that the bright light in the alternate cover in the blue in the top left there is not a moon. Maybe that's just a star, or like a brightly, there's lightning happening all there behind there. So maybe that's some ball lightning. Who knows? It's crazy. But I loved that the community folks figured this out, and then they told me via Twitter, and I think it's fantastic. And then I mentioned this to Shauna Wolf Narciso, who is the creative art director for all things Dungeons & Dragons, and she was art directing both of those covers with both of those artists. And she did not intend it to be that way, but she said it was a subconscious art direction that she was giving N.C. Winters as he was making the alternate art cover, because he originally proposed, I think, 3 Sahuagin coming out of the water, and she's like, no, it should just be 1. It should be 1 coming out and reaching. And she figured out the synergy that there might be some point of view in both of them, and then she just went with it. She thought it was just a really cool idea. And it reminds me of the first special cover that we did. Do you guys remember that? This first alternate cover that we ever did for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition was for Volos Guide to Monsters. And if you remember, the standard cover for Volos Guide to Monsters has got a Volo type character in front. He's got a book, and he is in front of a very large giant who is staying there, and the face of the giant is this big, and then Volo is like this big in front of the giant's face. But he's holding a book, and if you look closely at the book that he's holding, it looks very much like the alternate cover that Hydro 74 designed for Volo's Guide to Monsters, which I loved. I like those type of things in there. So here we are with Ghosts of Saltmarsh doing that again with these 2 covers. So it's very cool. So yeah, pick it up now. There's lots of great stuff in there. There's also the Sinister Silver edition of Ghosts of Saltmarsh that you can pick up by our friends at Beetle and Grimm's Pandemonium Warehouse. Check it out. It's got lots of great things in there to spice up your game and give you all the tools you need to adventure on the high seas beyond what's in the book. Very good stuff. You can also find all the content for Ghosts of Saltmarsh on D&D Beyond. You can find it in Fantasy Grounds as well as Roll20. It's wonderful. And I haven't really delved into it yet, so I'm hoping that you guys delve into it soon. Hi, Matthew Barone. Good to see you. Hi. Welcome. Welcome to D&D News. We are talking about what's going on with D&D. That is Ghosts of Saltmarsh, but I also want to make sure everyone knows about an awesome book that is coming called Acquisitions Incorporated. Very hard to say. If you mess it up in the back of your throat when you start out, it'll sound Acquisitions Incorporated, but it is Acquisitions Incorporated. Enunciation, tip of the tongue. It is a wonderful book that gives the Dungeon Masters and players all the stuff that you need to create a franchise of Ac Inc. in your home world. It doesn't have to be in the Forgotten Realms. Of course, it could be. It's got tons of Wonderful. Lots of stuff is in this this coffee, by the way. Tons of things, including caffeine and sugar and cream. You can get all those wonderful things on June 18th in the Acquisitions Incorporated source book. I can't wait to get it in hands. I've been able to thumb through the copy that has been in the... oh, is that... Hi, Mark. No, it's not. It's just caffeine. There is so many wonderful things in Acquisitions Incorporated, the source book, including all the NPC stat blocks for some of your favorite characters, including Viari, Rosie Beestinger, as played by Kate Welch, Cathris, of course, and Walnut Dancrafts. They're all in there, and you can have your party encounter them or not, as the case may be. It should be super fun. Again, June 18th is where you can find that everywhere. One release date is my favorite. You'll be able to get it wherever Dungeons & Dragons is sold, whether online or at your local game store. Check it out if you can. Unfortunately, there is no alternative cover for this one, but you should still go down to your local game store and pay them with your soul coin. It's the only way. It's the only payment that they accept. We'll be doing more and more with the AC Inc. book as we get closer to that release. There's also something very cool that I need to tell you about, which is the Essentials Kit. So, let me talk about that if we can. Do I have even a thing for it? Yes, I do. Dun, dun, dun. The Essentials Kit. We revealed this at D&D Live 2019, The Descent. This is a new boxed set that I believe is retailing for $24.99 or $25 for those of you who can round up. It is player focused, whereas you might say the original starter set from D&D 5th edition was DM focused, or at least it was very good at teaching DMs how to jump into the Lost Mines of Phandelver adventure. This one is very much about getting new players making their characters for the first time. You get all that dice that you see. You get a rule book that is designed to onboard new players and start them making their new character. You get an adventure that's written by Chris Perkins that is, in the same vein as Lost Mines of Phandelver. It's called Dragon of Icespire Peak. There's maps. There's cards that give you all types of information, including combat, magic items. Initiative, I think, is even tracked through cards in there if you so choose. But there's also sidekicks, which is a very, very interesting way to get players some extra firepower to a certain extent, so that they can play in a one-on-one session with your dungeon master. So a dungeon master and a single player, can play through some of the content in the Essentials Kit using these sidekicks and developing a full party that way. We often hear from folks that the first experience that you have playing Dungeons & Dragons can be tough. You have to get a whole bunch of players. It can be a little bit daunting when you have this new group of people all looking at you. So one-on-one sessions have been really great. People have been doing it for years and years and years, and this is, to my knowledge, one of the first products for Dungeons & Dragons, definitely the first one for 5th edition, that focuses on how to play with a one-on-one type of session. One note about programming for this here fun thing. For D&D News is what I mean to say. We usually have a D&D Rewind going up around the half hour, but unfortunately we don't. We don't have it ready. Looks like Steve Sprinkles was able to make one. We will pass it around on the socials via YouTube as soon as we can. Unfortunately, because Pelham Green is out sick, he's not feeling very well. A lot of the things we got getting going for what's happening here in for D&D News didn't, we had to figure it out. So unfortunately, we didn't get that in time. So sorry, Steve. We'll come with the D&D Rewind again next time we do this. And speaking of which, I'm going to be out next week. I'll be traveling. I won't be here for D&D News, so we won't be doing that. But I believe the plan is, if Pelham is not sick, to play some games during the 3 p.m. to 5 to 6 p.m. Slot here on Twitch. We're going to use the studio here behind me and play, I believe, a Dungeon Mayhem tournament is on the docket. So look for that next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time for that. It won't be me doing D&D news. I'll return for D&D news the following week. Okay, got all that? All right. What do I want to say to you going forward? I'm just going to start checking some email. Don't do that when you're on stream is generally the goal. Let's go through some of the fun stuff that we talked about at D&D Live. First off, I did a long Twitter thread. Of course, it broke after like 3 tweets, which I didn't realize until I was already done with the last of them, but it is a very long thread thanking a lot of people who worked and were at D&D Live 2019, The Descent. If you're interested to find out what it's like to put together an event quite like that with a lot of moving parts and a lot of pieces of a community coming together, that thread is a good way to check it out. We retweeted it a couple of times. I should probably pin it to my Twitter profile for a while so people can find it out there, but it is a nice way to check in and see all of the creative magic that goes into making an event like that awesome. So thank you to everyone on there. Of course, I can't go through and thank every single person right now on air because it'd be like the end of the Lord of the Rings movie where they just keep listing name after name after name of people. So it gets it's not, I wouldn't say it's entertaining. But I do appreciate every single person that was there, and that's why I like doing those thank you threads with pictures and a little bit of an insight into what it's like to put together the event. So check out that rather than having me just talk it out loud here. So some of the fun stuff that we announced at D&D Live were Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus. You guys know about that? Haha. Here they are, 2 covers for this adventure. It's going to be the first adventure that will have these 2 covers. The one on the left there was painted by Tyler Jacobson, an amazing artist, one of the people who've been painting Dungeons & Dragons covers for a long, long time. He did that one of a Zariel, the archdevil in charge of Avernus, the first layer of hell. And the one on the right there is by none other than Hydro74, who did the amazing covers for Volos Guide to Monsters and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So I can't wait for that. We're also doing Eclipse Dice, an Eclipse Dice and Miscellany set. So you get those awesome color combination dice right there. As well as the box itself comes in a nice little tray that you can open up and roll within. And then it has these cards and pull-out maps. So that's the map of Avernus underneath there, as well as these size comparison and charts, all types of fun little. Miscellany is a great word because they're just like little bits of lore in some ways that enhance your game and let you know all about what's happening in Descent into Avernus. So check that out. That's also out September 17th. And this is a kind of more of a close-up version. I love the color of dice. I feel like I had that color of dice at one point. But it is one of my faves. Really dig it. Very cool. We also, look at me for a second. We also announced a lot of other stuff that wasn't necessarily, devoted just to the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus storyline. For example, this one, Rick and Morty versus Dungeons & Dragons Volume 2, The Painscape. That's coming out this fall. Jim Zub is working on it with Troy Little. It's pretty amazing. I've seen the outline for it. It's badass. I really like the idea and the story behind it. It's totally different from the first series, but different but better. It's very cool. Check it out if you can. Now, also Rick and Morty related, Dungeons & Dragons versus Rick and Morty, the tabletop role-playing adventure game. This is another box set that we are working out here. Oh, wait, what was... See, I just happened to glance down and I saw Brian Cortijo there. Listening to a stream like it's a voicemail is awkward. Yeah, no, you can totally just, continue to talk to me. And that makes perfect sense. I love how there's many of my former players from New York are now in the chat on the regular basis. So that's pretty awesome. So shout out to Brian. Hi, Brian. And shout out to Mark Moreland, who was also in there at some point. Yeah, right, exactly. Yoda ate my head. There he is. Hi guys. We should get everybody up on here. That should be pretty fun. All right. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So this thing. It's called Relish. Wait, no, it's not actually called Relish, but this was the code name for this product as we were talking about it. Coming out this November. It's pretty cool. So check it. Everybody's working really hard on making this cool. We also have wonderful miniatures coming from WizKids that will have tons of devils and demons and all that fun stuff going on. We love all the things. I mean, the Dungeon of the Mad Mage set of minis has been fantastic. I love them, as well as the Dragon Heist minis. So if they continue to rock the Casbah with these type of minis, I can't wait to see them. So look for those from WizKids. And then also, these are coming out this summer. These weren't necessarily announced at D&D Live, but we talked about them a lot. The Young Adventurers Guides from 10 Speed Press and from Stacey King and Jim Zub. They are ways for young readers to get into the Dungeons & Dragons milieu without having to thumb through, the 200 pages of the Player's Handbook even, right? Like, so they're a little bite-sized. They're talking about different topics, so there you saw monsters and spells as well. Monsters and creatures, warriors and weapons. There's 2 other ones coming out later that have to do with spells as well as dungeons. But those are fantastic. I know my girls will eat them up when they come out. They love all those things. So check for them coming when you can. And to answer your question, yes, Relish, I believed, was because of Pickle Rick. But I'm not sure. Also, I had the devil's mustard in my eyes, so maybe that had something to do with it. There's also this coming from Jim Zub and company, Mr. Max Dunbar doing the artwork on it. A return to Baldur's Gate for Infernal Tides, a new adventure starring the Legends of Baldur's Gate crew, which of course includes Minsk and Boo in this timeline. I can't wait to see that. Those of you who were fans of the Baldur's Gate video games back in the day might love to see where Minsk and Boo are doing now. This is the perfect way to check it out. There's, I think there's been 4 series starring them so far. They've followed a few of the more recent Dungeons and Dragons storylines, like Storm King's Thunder and Ravenloft. I believe they went to Ravenloft in the demi-plane of Ravenloft through the mists. But now here they are back in Baldur's Gate in their city, talking about all the fun stuff. So those will be out this year as well. The Mists, as Ashley says. I should play a one-shot with one of my old pals, and then I will also hide a coin in my hair to see if anyone notices it's there. Of course, I can't actually move if I do that. Okay, let's see how long that can stay in there. So I talked about all that stuff. Is that everything else that we talked about at D&D Live? I think it is. So again, no dice camera action today. We are still on a hiatus with that show. We'll be back with more news on that front as soon as we figure out about it. So don't worry. We'll let you know as soon as we have some clear plans. But I wanted to keep this stream going with... Oh, dang it. That was what? 2 minutes? But I wanted to make sure, I spoke to you for the D&D news. We will be using these time slots in different ways going forward. The first is next week, Pelham Green and company will be playing Dungeon Mayhem live from the studio, probably that's right behind me. So look for that in the 3 p.m. to 5 to 6 p.m. time slot on Tuesdays. I will not be there. Unfortunately, I'm doing some traveling next week, but it will be fun to play some games with some of my colleagues when I return during that time slot while we get ready for what's going to be happening here for Dice Camera Action. Good, fun stuff. Yes, Pelham Green will be on camera if I have to strap him to the table and make him play some fun stuff. I do want to talk about some things that were going on in the Adventurers League. So here you go. It is, in case you didn't know what Adventurers League was, it is D&D's official play campaign which means that you can create an Adventurers League character and take that to any other event, whether it's at your friendly local game store, at a convention, at an event that's being run at your local library or at your high school or in the restaurant at the top of the Space Needle. You can do it there, and that's the whole idea. So we have, well, not that necessarily, but here's some pictures from the D&D Epic that was at D&D Live. I might have shown these last time, but I want to show these again because these are some of the awesome people who wrote the adventure as well as were making it happen, including the Dungeon Masters. They did a fantastic job. Thank you to all of them. I see some friendly faces here at all of these tables, so that's awesome. We also have, where are they? Oh yes, so the Adventurers League Season 9 Open and Epic premiered not at D&D Live, at the UK Games Expo. So here, check out some of this from across the pond. There is Mr. Chris Lindsay in his Mert costume. I think he is contractually obligated to show up only at public events wearing this amazing costume. So that's it. He'll be doing that from now on. There's an imp being done right there. I love this. Ooh, great costumes here from all of these folks. Making it feel quite hell-like, and I like that they put the banners behind them of the Blood War. Badass stuff happening behind you. There's some pop-ups using the Descent into Avernus, and then of course, the devil horns. I'm glad that guy's got the devil horns. They should be throwing some horns, if you know what I mean. Oh, a devilish contract prop. You've got me. You've got me there. That looks pretty good. I like how the skull ink pot. Ooh, good stuff. So there you have it. There is Adventurers League Season 9 Open and Epic premiering there. If you guys want to send me your pictures of Adventurers League events, you're not actually sending them to me. You're sending them to the amazing Lisa Chen, who has done amazing work here for the D&D team, as well as for Adventurers League and Dungeon Masters Guild. You can send it to community@dndadventurersleague.org with a little note about the game that was being played or the session, where you are, where you're from. As much as you're comfortable sharing, I will share it with people on air here on the next D&D News. So send in your pictures to that email address when you can, and we will hopefully give lots of thumbs up to everything you're doing. So thank you. Here is some stuff that's going on in the Dungeon Masters Guild. Did you really make a gif of me putting it in my hair? I'm sorry, Lisa. Here's perhaps a better one. I gotta make it stay. Hold on. Oh, no. I didn't put enough product in my hair. That's the problem. I gotta put more. I think I just broke my computer. So I'm getting what I deserve, I'm sure. So what is Dungeon Masters Guild? Well, the Dungeon Masters Guild is the place where you can publish 5th edition content in style. It's the only place actually where you can publish adventures and supplements using Forgotten Realms or Ravenloft or Ravnica or others, Wizards IP and settings, all that fun stuff. Oh, I should wear it as an earring. That's a great idea. Hi. Hello. How's it going? It is amazing. You should check it out. The Dungeon Masters Guild has launched a new feature for community creators called Bundles. Did you guys know about this? Just like the Bundles DMs Guild curates, now you can put your favorite community authors, bundle their titles at a discount, or even collaborate with each other on themed bundles. And I've got one. I don't know if I actually have the... I do. I hope I do. Is it? No, that's it. That's the wrong one. Wait, that's not Uncharted Waters. Nope. Sorry, I didn't get the other one in time. I don't think. Let me look for it for a second. No, unfortunately, I didn't get that in time. But it is called Uncharted Waters. If you're starting up a Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign, this is the perfect bundle to consider. It's got 18 races, 16 feats, 2 subclasses, and more for your high seas adventurer. You can play as a crawfolk, or an octopod. Those are pretty cool sounding races. I love that. The link is going to be put in there. Again, it's called Uncharted Waters, so check it out if you can. I will show the cover whenever I can, maybe even next week or the week after, because I won't be back here. So Good stuff. I love that idea. I love the idea of putting bundles together. There's a lot of great content on the Dungeon Masters Guild, but I think people who want to spend want to get a deal, and they like that idea of having it all go together. It's kind of similar to the idea of a Steam sale, in that people feel like they're getting a lot for the money. So I dig that. It's pretty cool. One thing I do want to highlight, because it is the beginning of June, we haven't talked about it in a little while, so I want to make sure we prop everyone up. The Dungeons and Dragons and Magic communities are supporting the Lambert House fundraisers again this year. You can get a wonderful t-shirts, apparel, all types of cool things, including trucker hats, a color tote, pop sockets, sports watch, bottles, all types of fun stuff with the amazing logos for, and here I can show you some of them right here. I should have been doing this as I was talking about them. The rainbow logos for the Dungeons & Dragons ampersand, as well as the Planeswalker symbol for, and there's a blanket, you guys. I don't know if you know that, but there's a blanket. It's pretty cool. There's a duffel bags. You can get a totes. These are the water bottles that I was talking about. I also really like the banner that you can use for Pride events in your town. Very good stuff. We've got an amazing emote, as I see people thrown in there with the rainbow ampersand. Then, of course, t-shirts. I like all these. All have the breast versions on the left breast for hoodies and tank tops, as well as t-shirts. Great stuff all abound there. All of the proceeds go to support Lambert House, which is a community that supports LGBTQ youth here in the Seattle area. They've been expanding over the last few years, so while they're not just doing King County and Seattle anymore, they're going out to surrounding communities based on the amount of fundraising they've been able to get. It was fantastic. Last year, they helped out more than 1,113 unique individual youth last year, some of which were currently homeless. 69% of them are between the ages of 11 and 17, which is crazy. It's all about youth and figuring out how to support them during any tough transition period. I mean, it's hard enough to be 11 to 17 in the world, but especially for folks who fall into some of these communities and don't feel like they have the support. And so that's what the Lambert House is all about, and I think it's fantastic. So get out there, get some of these pieces of apparel or accessories. Wear it with pride all month long, all year long. I love going to conventions. I mean, I saw it on countless people at D&D Live, folks wearing these t-shirts in support of inclusion in the community. It speaks to everything about what the D&D community is about in my heart, about bringing people in, making them feel supported. It's like Dungeon Masters do for their players. Everybody wants to support them and make sure that they're feeling like they're having fun and having fulfilling lives and telling fulfilling stories. And that's what we are trying to do here by supporting everything this month and beyond. And speaking of which, on Thursday, my colleague and friend Jeremy Crawford is going to be honored at the Puget Sound Business Journal Business of Pride event. I'm pretty excited about it. It's here, it's invitation only, so I'm not really calling out like it's crazy, like you can buy tickets, although you still can totally buy tickets if you want to support this cause. Tons of great leaders from the business community here in the Seattle area are being honored, and Jeremy Crawford is one of them, and I'm really proud to be able to support him, as well as all of the work that he has done, making sure that Dungeons & Dragons stories feel as inclusive for all folks in the community. So that's awesome, and we definitely put a spotlight on these types of issues here in June because it is Pride Month, but it's something that we are passionate about all year long. So go for it. Make things happen and support your communities wherever you can. Okay, so back to some fun stuff that's happening in the Dungeons and Dragons world is the kind of recaps and things that people have written in the press about D&D Live. So it always takes people a little bit to get to digest that type of an event. We had it there for 3 days. People, I mean, there was even longer period of time, actually 4 or 5 days. Some folks were there, so some are just coming out now, and I think it's really cool. So this one is from my friend Cameron Kunzelman. We have a long history of working together on all types of stuff, but here he wrote about in Paste a really long, insightful article about what it's like to be at basically at D&D Live. It's very cool. This great pull-out quote: "Sitting in the room, listening to people enjoy listening to streamers make friends was heartening, and I can't shake the feeling that there's something fundamentally more rewarding about watching and playing this game." He also goes on to talk about something that he hadn't really thought of, but something we've been really experiencing here on the D&D team. That there's that some of the moments that were experienced on the main stage at D&D Live were the hallmarks of D&D as performance, a relatively new mutation in the game where it exists not just as something to play, but as a platform from which you can build out interactions and collaborative stories that are not just fulfilling to experience for yourself, but fulfilling for others to watch. It's a really cool idea. So we're trying to think about what it means to both be performative in your Dungeons and Dragons play as well as just for the home table. And people have, there's definitely been lots of conversations in the community about, what is portrayed on shows like Dice Camera Action or Critical Role that is not what it's like to actually play at home, right? And I never really found that as a useful distinction to me, because of course it's not. It's for, you're in front of a camera, there's lights, there's things involved in it. It's going to be a heightened version of Dungeons and Dragons, which I've used that phrase a bunch. But it's really interesting to see someone else kind of experience that for the first time and find out that distinction and realize that it's not necessarily a bug. It's a feature of what Dungeons and Dragons can do, in that you can play it in many, many different ways, different styles. From the home game that's very casual, that has lots of in-jokes that don't, wouldn't necessarily be fun for other people to watch, or you can play it in a way in front of an audience with people laughing and hanging on every word or dice roll and celebrating those when it rolls high, for example. So very interesting piece. Read it. It's worthwhile kind of investigation of what's going on in our community. Good stuff there. There's also a new article that came out very recently on Sci-Fi Wire, and it's called "How Dungeons and Dragons reimagines and customizes iconic folklore monsters." It's a really cool idea. How many of the beasts and monsters that you encounter in a Dungeons and Dragons game, have roots in folklore, as well as there being a whole bunch of other fun and interesting stuff that goes in there. This article is derived from an interview that Mike Merles gave with the writer here at Sci-Fi Wire. He actually thinks that it's more of like a 2/3 split. Yeah, I know. There's really, really cool stuff about how folklore and things interact with. And here's a picture of what it is here. So, many of the creatures in Dungeons & Dragons are iconic monsters from folklore and myth. Yet when you're staring one down, armed with a d20 and whatever magic items you manage to get your hands on, the monsters feel pretty unique. And I think that's true. I mean, there's definitely hags and dragons and goblins in there, but they're all very much about the D&D's take on them. So check that out. Good article. There'll be another one coming from Sci-Fi as they go through monsters on a thing, but a good in-depth look into what folklore and everything has to do with that. One other cool and funny, interesting thing, not necessarily funny or interesting, but we always hear about the people who have been successful in their lives, who have played Dungeons and Dragons. There's clearly the whole folks in the entertainment industry who have made a big name for themselves, who love Dungeons and Dragons and the storytelling possibilities that exist in there. But there's also people who went into different walks of life, different areas, who were inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. So On one end of that spectrum is Reid Hoffman, a guy who has made billions as the founder of LinkedIn. He's also, I think, on Microsoft's board of directors. But this article is from CNBC, and it says how Dungeons and Dragons and science fiction helped LinkedIn's billionaire's co-founder have success. And this is also was also mentioned in a New York Times profile on him, saying that Dungeons & Dragons was pretty instrumental to the path I ultimately ended up taking. It was a focus on strategy and how tactics and strategy go together. That's definitely very true. And that in the beginning of the CNBC article, he also talks about how he learned about how to start a company. He says by how to run a campaign or how to be a leader within the framework of Dungeons & Dragons, which I think is really fascinating. It goes back to something that I always loved about, like, say, war games and strategy games, and how those evolved from the elite. Some of them in Napoleonic times even were playing war games by having miniatures, actual miniatures of their units on large scale maps, and then playing war games with them to test out tactics, to train new battle commanders. Because there's no way to simulate what it's like in a real battle, in a game like a war game is the best way to do that. So I'm fascinated with that idea of where kind of gaming intersects with the real world, and this is one way that does it. So I've also thought that Dungeons and Dragons kind of steered my life maybe in a different way than it did Reid Hoffman's, but it is still very interesting. I think most people watching this will have some way in which Dungeons and Dragons translated into making their lives better, or the lessons that they learned while running a game or organizing people within it. Could be, that's something I want to not have be happening. So check out that article if you can. Very interesting, fun stuff. I also wanted to highlight, and I don't think there's a link in here for folks, but there was very recently posted today, in fact, a TED Talk by Mr. Jim Zub. I've mentioned his name a few times here throughout this D&D news program. He's working, of course, on Infernal Tide, as well as the Rick and Morty comic, and he came up with the idea for these soul coins while we were brainstorming some stuff here with Adam Lee and the rest of the D&D team 2 years ago. But he did a TED Talk at a school in Canada. I guess it's called an TEDx Talk. So it's not at the big TED conference, at these smaller conferences they do around the country. Fantastic. I've only watched the first couple minutes of it, but it really delves into what it is like as a creative person and how Dungeons and Dragons informed his brain early on. It's really good. Thank you, DC Lasair, for putting that in the amazing chat. Thank you for that. Worthwhile watching. Jim is such a wonderful proponent of what makes fantasy storytelling, and especially the Dungeons and Dragons world, important for youth, for adults, for old people, for dogs, for cats, for Medusas, for devils and demons, for disembodied skull heads. Dungeons & Dragons is just important out there, and I want to get more people out there, for sure, to watch and learn. And if you ever have someone in your life who still says, and we get this less and less, but I'm sure there are people out there still. I had a few conversations with my neighbors in West Seattle, not about them, but about other people who still kind of look askance at gaming in general, but especially Dungeons and Dragons, with a little bit of wariness as to that. But there's more and more data, there's more and more speeches, there's more and more stuff out there that points to how important it is, and how it can be very formative, especially at a young age, to be imaginative and to not lose that sense of play, sense of community that D&D provides. My daughter, she's 8. She just turned 8 about a month ago. She, just on a whim, she actually was reading one of the Endless Quest books that I'd given her, written by Matt Forbeck, and she was reading a few pages of that on Saturday afternoon. This was just 4 days ago, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to dungeon master." I'm like, "Okay, you can dungeon master." I was in the middle of doing 4 other things, and I didn't want to necessarily be like, "Okay, let's drop everything and play D&D." But she pushed it. She definitely was like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right now." And I was like, "Okay, let's say 2:00. We'll do it at 2:00." This was like an hour from now. Just to kind of push it off because I'm in the middle of something and that. And she brought the story idea that she had, and she recruited some of the neighbors who were playing outside to come on in. We didn't even really roll characters. We just kind of just gave like, okay, you're a orc fighter, and you're a a dwarf rogue. We just kind of gave them real kind of archetypes. And she led them on this story. It was, pretty basic. We kind of were over in an hour. But I just love that she found that creative drive, and she immediately wanted to jump in to playing. And I was there to support it and make it happen. So I really dug it. And I'm hoping that more and more kids out there see what's happening in the Dungeons and Dragons community and want to jump in and start their brains telling stories, because it is the best way to get ahead in the world. It really is. Yes, welcome. Someone just came in who has not been here before. Welcome, Iris Pearl 38. Good to have you. I am Greg Tito. I'm here to stay. And I talk about Dungeons and Dragons way too much, or not enough, as the case may be. We are a very exciting Twitch channel. There's lots of stuff going on here. I don't get to highlight it all too often, so I'm going to go through and talk about all the amazing stuff that is happening, because I believe, now I could be wrong, but I believe, here I'm checking something before I say it. Yes. All right. So I'm going to go through and see all the fun things that are happening this week. We've had a few fits and starts as we still recover from D&D Live. But tomorrow there's no dice camera action today. Again, in case people are coming on looking for dice camera action, we're on a hiatus. We'll be back with more news about what's happening. In the meantime, next week there will be a Dungeon Mayhem card game tournament being played during this time slot, so from like 3 to around 5 or 6. So look for that. I will not be there for that, but it is pretty amazing. So check out Pelham Green and a whole bunch of crew playing a amazing fun to learn card game called Dungeon Mayhem. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, Roll20 presents Jace Beleren Must Die. I love all the folks in this spectacular cast, including TK Johnson, who's in the chat, I believe. Hello, TK. How are you? There is also Carlos Luna, Masood Haq, and Katie May, all led by the Dungeon Master Adam Coble. They do fantastic work set in the Ravnica world that is in the Magic cards that are available now. Check it out tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. They have a longer kind of bit of a session there. Dragon Plus is at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. That's with Bart Carroll. He'll be talking to Jeremy Crawford on the Unearthed Arcana Artificer. We stealth announced that there is a reason why we've been testing out Unearthed Arcana stuff involving the world of Eberron. You can find out about that more at 1 p.m. Pacific Time tomorrow. Then we're hosting Heroes of the Veil from our friends at D&D Beyond. Todd Kenrick, the amazing Dungeon Master, is there with Mr. Adam Bradford, Lauren Urban, TJ Storm, Hope Lavelle, and Jennifer Kretschmer. All amazing people, all doing great work. And I think Obo Crazy is here in the chat. Hi, Obo. Can't wait to see what you guys are doing tomorrow. Also, at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, we've got Acquisitions Incorporated, the C Team. I believe they're back. We're hosting that with Mr. Jerry Holkins as the Dungeon Master, with Kate Welch, Amy Falcone, Ryan Hartman, and Chris Straub. They were amazing folks here at the D&D Live, and they do great stories as they're leading up to the release of Acquisitions Incorporated, the source book. So look for that when you can. Then on Thursday at 9 a.m., Mr. Adam Bradford from D&D Beyond will do his weekly dev update, talking about what's going on with D&D Beyond and how it can improve, taking questions from the audience as well as speaking directly to the camera, just like I am doing right now. So Adam is fantastic. Check that out if you can, if you're interested in D&D Beyond. If you haven't seen or heard or play or use D&D Beyond, I suggest you jump into it, because it is the easiest way, in my mind, to make a character to play the tabletop version of Dungeons and Dragons. Takes 2 seconds. If I had more time with my little girl this weekend, I would have had everybody roll up their characters on D&D Beyond, because it is just that easy. But you should check it out, as well as check out what Adam is talking about and what's being done. Idols Champions of the Forgotten Realms is at 1 p.m. on Thursday, followed by Welch's Game Juice. That's Miss Kate Welch, Ms. Kate Welch, doing amazing work playing Baldur's Gate 2. She has a juiced emote for a reason. I want you guys to throw it up there if you can. Juiced. She'll be playing through, as I said, Baldur's Gate 2, the Enhanced Edition from our friends at Beamdog. There was just a recent announcement that those Enhanced Editions from Beamdog are coming to modern consoles. You will be able to play Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Icewind Dale, including some other amazing games like Neverwinter Nights and what's the other one? Now I'm blanking on it. It's at a different part of the dock. On consoles later on this year. That's really fantastic. I love those games. They're wonderful stories. They're still held up as these wonderful examples of video game writing to this day, even though they're 20 plus years old, and they're now available to play on your couch in front of a TV using consoles that you know and love. So that's amazing, and Kate has done an amazing job of going through and showing just how cool those games are to even a modern audience. Critical Role, of course, is at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday. We'll be hosting that here. Hang out with us. Then on Friday, we may not have a Spoilers and Swag at 11 a.m. Just saying, there's Kate is going to be traveling, so it might be Nathan by himself. It might not be Nathan at all. We might just postpone it until next week. But he is excited to talk to you about some fun stuff and come down from everything that's happening with D&D. So look for that. That would be at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We'll let you know whether or not that is canceled or not and or postponed. So check it out. Spoilers and Swag. That's where Nathan Stewart, the director of Dungeons & Dragons, gets on the mic and spoils a lot of stuff, really. So if you have not ever watched their monthly show, you should check that out. Then I will be back with me and Shelly talking for Dragon Talk at 12 noon on Friday. We will banter it up for the first hour. Then we have an interview with Alice Cleaver from Straticus Academy. Apologies. Can't wait to talk to them, and we will then do some fun lore, or it'll probably end up being some lore between 2 and 3 p.m. on Friday. And then Bidwin Plays. The amazing Scott Kirks will play some Idol Champions from 3 to 4. Then on Saturday, we actually have a pretty full weekend. So I want to make sure you guys know about all the weekend content that we've got going on here on twitch.tv/DND. So Saturday, 12:30, Geeks Table, Call of the Kraken. They will be playing some amazing fun stuff using Ghost of Saltmarsh. This is a relatively new show with Dungeon Master Guy and the players Maher, Kaora, Michael, and Janet, and Jenny. And they're going to be adventuring using Ghost of Saltmarsh, as I said. So check that out if you're interested in seeing that in play. At 3 p.m. is Guild Gates and Goblins. They're playing through Curse of Strahd. And then at 4 p.m. we're hosting Trece Albus with none other than Elwarius himself, Dungeon Master Mario Ortegon, Derek Ruiz, Morgan Saiterion, and Mike Balles. And they speak Spanish. That was me trying to attempt a Spanish accent. I'm sure I did terribly, but they were awesome to meet, or some of that cast was amazing to meet at D&D Live face-to-face. I'm so excited that they were there and that they were able to play on the stream. If you haven't been able to check that out, go to YouTube. That is where all of our content from D&D Live is there. They played with Carlos Luna and Serena Marie, as well as DM Jazzy Hands, Eugenio Vargas. So good stuff, good melding of a whole bunch of worlds there. Then on Sunday, this is the whole reason why I wanted to do this entire run through the D&D Twitch schedule. Rivals of Waterdeep returns this Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's right, Season 4. It is Dungeon Mastered by Serena Marie with the amazing Tanya DePash, Sharif Jackson, Cicero Holmes, Carlos Luna, and the return of Brandon Stennis. Well, not the return. He's always been there, but he was not able to attend D&D Live, so I'm excited that they get the whole crew back again for the return of Rivals of Waterdeep. Check it out. They're awesome. They're a Chicago-based group that has been going only for about a year. I'm seeing a whole bunch of notifications pop up on my phone of what it was like a year ago at the Stream of Many Eyes, and many of those folks had just got together and started playing Dungeons & Dragons together for the first time. So it's very cool that they have now returned for a season 4. So check it out. Also on Sunday, Realm Smith WizKids is going to be doing some painting of miniatures. Jason Azevedo was amazing. I've met him a couple of times at a couple of events, but he was great at D&D Live. Great to see at D&D Live. And he'll be painting some WizKids Nolzor's Marvelous Miniatures, which are their unpainted line. You know exactly what you're coming when you buy a miniature, and he will show you how to paint them and make them pop. You're going to make them pop. He's an expert painter, but I love that he is showing folks how to make it happen. So that's good stuff. And then, of course, D4 is at 4 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday. That is with... God, I'm dropping soul coins left and right. This is my last one that I've got at the table. Better not lose it. Dustin Fletcher and Devin are co-DMs. Devin Henderson. They are fantastic. They've got wonderful, wonderful players, including Ethan Mansour, Goblin Katie, Rhea Watkins, Patrick Logan, and Katie Adkins. Some of my favorite people playing together. Shout out to Dustin and Devin for being at D&D Live, and along with many others, putting together the Arkin costume that you've seen pictures of all over the internet. The Arkin is the Dragonborn character that was popularized and created by Joe Manganiello, and his costume was worn by David Baxter, and it looked fantastic, very frightening. There was real live steel that was sharp and hurt people, including the actor, but it was amazing to see, and it made for such a great visual impression. I think my favorite image from Dungeons & Dragons Live was Arkin, or David Baxter dressed as Arkin, speaking to Deborah Ann Wall in her streetwear on a couch in the middle of D&D Live. Very interesting, fun conversation. I didn't even care what they were talking about. I just liked the visual image of them conversing. It was fantastic. So shout out to them. Those folks who made that costume are Dustin Fletcher and Devin Henderson. They are DMing D4, so watch them, support their stream if you can. They're fantastic people. All right, I've been talking a lot. There is no Dice Camera action today. I want to make sure everyone knows they're still on hiatus. I will still be doing D&D news for the foreseeable future for this time slot. I will not be back next week, though. Instead, there will be some folks in here playing Dungeon Mayhem in a tournament setting. I've now promised that Pelham Green will be on stream. He will be playing Dungeon Mayhem, at least during one session of that. We will try to dramatize the tournament as much as we can with good camera angles so you can see what cards are played and that type of thing. But finally, I just wanted to note, this is an amazing artifact that you can get in Beetle and Grimm's box for Descent into Avernus. It might not look exactly like this or be exactly this size, but this is the badge of the Hell Riders. We talked about this in the most recent Lore You Should Know that I recorded with Adam Lee, narrative designer for Dungeons & Dragons. I'm not put it in front of my face as I'm talking. It's fantastic. I really like it. It's what the Hell Riders wore on their way into Avernus the first time. But you'll have to listen to Dragon Talks episode that's coming out on Thursday, or watch the video on demand from last Friday to find out more about that group. And as I said, you'll be able to pick this up from the Platinum Edition box that is being sold currently at Beetle and Grimm's. They're fantastic. There's only making 1,000 of those boxes. I've said they're fantastic, I think, about 40 times during this stream, so I'm going to retire that phrase. But they really are fantastic. All the folks behind Beetle and Grimm's, and the 1,000 boxes are going to go fast. So if you're interested in some cool artifacts, they make really good stuff. You should check out the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus Platinum Edition that is currently for sale at Beetle and Grimm's Pandemonium Warehouse. Get together with your groups, put them together, get everyone ready to purchase it for use by your Dungeon Master. It's definitely worthwhile. All right, that's D&D news for this week. Again, I'll be off next week, but I will return the following week. There will be some Dungeon Mayhem being played here next week, so check that out if you can. And then, of course, listen to all of those and or watch all of that amazing content that's happening here on twitch.tv/D&D. Pick up some great Lambert House D&D and or Magic stuff for your Pride Parade this weekend. Support everyone in your community. Spread the good word about Dungeons and Dragons, and I will see you guys later. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye. I'm going to keep doing this until I press my button. Bye-bye.